Records of Hanan Pacha, Volume 1. Here is the chronicled story of how that wisest sage in all of history, Waxaklaubakan, the one known as the Sage of the Stolen Fire, and how the tribe living upon Hanan Pacha, which he built, rose up and was then scattered. Like many of the most ancient stories, it begins in the age where the stars and the moon held the sky, and the dragons ruled the land, and Lord of the Night ruled the night realm. The people then were ignorant and wandered the barren land. The first Pyro Archon had not yet been born, and so none yet had visions, could do naught but be controlled by the elements. Until Waxaklaubakan brought back the kindling of phlogiston from the red and black land. Only then did humanity gain the power to vie with the wild beasts and fell dragons. Now, astute listeners might already be wondering, as a human, how could the sage Waxaklaubakan steal the phlogiston kindling from the claws of the evil dragons? That is precisely the first story I'm going to tell. Legends tell us that long, long ago, in the red and black lands, there lived a winged dragon. That dragon was the scion of the great lord of the volcano, Xuquatl. In some versions of the story, it is said that he's none other than Xuquatl himself. But the gods only know what kind of storyteller would make such a mistake. After all, who could forget that the one who defeated Xuquatl was the very first Pyro Arca, Xbalanque himself? How could things have been resolved at a point so early in the story? Anyway, when the great lord of the volcano fell into deep slumber, this vain winged dragon claimed the treasures that once belonged to the former, and proclaimed itself to be the lone king. Among those treasures, one of the most striking was known as pyrophosphorite. That was a crystal refined of the primal fire in the depths of the great volcano, and its color was that of an ever-shifting rainbow, shining with dazzling light. Illuminated by this radiance, the winged dragon itself became bewitchingly brilliant.
Gaze upon me and see how beautiful I am. My light illuminates the world and I am the sun of this land.
So spake the winged dragon. But he was no sun, and his beauty was none but the reflections of the pyrophosphorite's light. And in turn, the light did no more than illuminate the red and black lands in which it dwelt. Perhaps it was the vanity of the winged dragon that offended the Lord of the Night, for he sent the sage Waxaklaubakan to defeat him. But perhaps that seemed not enough to some, and so the god sent the fool Chak with him. Under the protection of the Lord of the Night, the two arrived in the red and black lands, and far away, they saw that radiant winged dragon. Waxaklaubakan was in no hurry to rush onward, but rather made a blow dart from bamboo, and struck the winged dragon's eye with a single shot. Chak watched with glee, and was about to charge up to capture the winged dragon, who was restrained by the sage. Foolish Chak. Though one eye is now blinded, he still possesses limitless power. With your human body, just how do you intend to contend with him? The wise Waxaklaubakan thought up of a better plan. The wounded winged dragon returned to its cave to hide, and so the sage Waxaklaubakan and the fool Chak disguised themselves as doctors and entered the cave. My word, how glorious you are, how splendid and radiant. But what a shame that you cannot see yourself, and neither can the masses behold your beauty. Waxaklaubakan praised him.
It is all because a few days ago some despicable maggot shot and blinded my eye. That is why I can but hide in this cave.
Now that is truly serendipitous. We happen to be traveling doctors specializing in curing eye diseases. In my opinion, if you replace your eye with a bright gem, you'll once more be able to see the light, said the sage. And not only that, but we can even replace your fangs and claws with gems, and you would surely shine 12 times more brightly than you already do. Hearing these words, the conceited winged dragon could not help but fantasize about how beautiful it would be when it was 12 times more radiant. It would happily agree without stopping to think about it in any detail. And so the sage and the fool Chak took out the grain fruit they had earlier prepared, and one by one replaced the winged dragon's eyes, fangs, and claws with grain fruit. The poor wicked dragon. Not only was his eye not healed, but in the time he realized that he'd been tricked, he couldn't even eat those two little humans. And so he died in a daze, and the pyrophosphorite fell into the hands of Waxaklaubakan. The fool, Chak, thought they should offer the treasure to the Lord of the Night. But the wise Waxaklaun Ubakan had a different idea. He knew that the dragons that ruled the land possessed power far beyond that of humanity, but did not necessarily have more wisdom. And the secret to power lay within that pyrophosphorite. And so he broke it open, and vast power poured forth. The sage Waxaklaun Ubakan thus gained the power of dragons, that which is known as phlogiston. Volume 2. Next, I will tell you the story of how sage Waxaklaun Ubakan passed phlogiston to the people of the tribes and built Hanan Pacha. After leaving the red and black lands, Waxaklaun Ubakan and the fool Chak came to the land of forests and mountains where human tribes lived. Waxaklaun Ubakan wished to pass on the power to use phlogiston to humans, but none wished to learn from him, for none knew just what the use of phlogiston he spoke of was.
If we want to make fire, we need only strike the flint. As for fuel, there's firewood and vegetation everywhere. What use have we for phlogiston?
Oh, short-sighted people, do you not know there will come a day when all plants and firewood are consumed and are no more? And that the most plentiful, inexhaustible thing in the world is rocks? If you can use phlogiston to burn rocks, then you will have solved the problem of obtaining energy once and for all. Thus spake the sage, filled with confidence.
I'm afraid we'll never see that day come.
The people then did not yet see their ancestors in the Night Kingdom, and thus they naturally did not think of the future. And so, Waxaklaun Ubakan had no choice but to give up. The fool Chak, seeing the sage troubled by this, suggested a solution that would make the benefits phlogiston could bring readily apparent to all. So, like, we could take this big old rock and raise it up higher than the mountains where everyone can see it. Then, like, everyone will totally get all curious and come running to us. Though they were words of a fool, Waxaklaun Ubakan had little choice but to try. And so, he first taught Chak how to use phlogiston, and the two of them raised the lands together. The land thus raised was none other than Hanan Pacha, the upper sanctum of which people today now speak. But unlike today, the Hanan Pacha of those days was still a vast tract of land, whole and complete. It floated above the clouds, and all the humans of Natlan could confirm its existence with a glance. And so, one by one, people from all corners were driven there by their curiosity. The kind-hearted Chak stood guard by the lake, using the power of phlogiston to help people ascend to Hanan Pacha. And those that ascended to Hanan Pacha learned the art of using phlogiston from the sage Waxaklaun Ubakan. And under the leadership of Waxaklaun Ubakan, the people founded the first permanently settled tribe upon Hanan Pacha. Volume 3. Next, I will tell the story of how the people of Hanan Pacha broke the taboos and caused the sage of the stolen flame to leave Natlan. After the people were taught how to use the power of phlogiston, they built a city on top of Hanan Pacha. Within the city were magnificent palaces and temples, all made of rare gems, brilliant feathers, and fragrant flowers. After completing all of this, Waxaklaun Ubakan decided to raise Hanan Pacha still higher. For this, all of you must no longer eat anything produced by this land save for water. For all the streams of this world flow from the source of all waters and are not subject to the Lord of the Night's control. Chak had no idea why they should go yet higher and didn't want to leave Natlan, but whenever he went to ask Waxaklaun Ubakan this question, the latter would only speak of the lunar continent and Newark Holy Stone and other stuff he couldn't understand. As Waxaklaun Ubakan was the smartest person in the world and everyone did as he said, and so, they began to raise fish in the blue expanse and grow ball algae for food, and Hanan Pacha flew higher each day. Finally, the Lord of the Night realized the sage's intentions, and they feared humanity's departure. They decided to try and stop his plans. One day, while the sage was away, the Lord of the Night disguised himself as a human of the tribe, and carrying a bottle of mysterious water, he found Chak, waiting by the lake. Friend, don't guard the water of this lake any longer. See? The water I hold is 100 times sweeter than that of the lake. Come, have a taste. Though he thought of what the sage had said, it was just water, so it should be fine. Or so Chak thought. reaching out and taking a sip. Trying it, he discovered the taste was truly sweet beyond compare. And so the Lord of the Night gave him more sweet water, and he brought it up to Hanan Pacha, sharing it with all. But what Chalk did not know was that this water was actually brewed from the grains grown from the land. In our modern parlance, it was alcohol. When the sage returned, everyone was dead drunk. The sage knew that they could no longer leave Natlan, so he expelled them from Hanan Pacha. The scattered people brought phlogiston with them to every corner of Natlan. And so, the sage of the stolen flame set out on the road home.
The road home? Does that mean he went back to the red and black lands? Were you listening or not? The red and black lands were where the sage stole phlogiston. Though the legends don't actually say where the sage's homeland was, so I suppose what the road home means is that someday he'll return. Come on, that's obviously just one of those storyteller lines you guys always use. How about you cut it with the suspense?
Anyway, after the sage of the stolen flame left, Chalk accepted the guidance of the Lord of the Night and established permanently settled tribes on the land. The age of the humans of Natlan began. But that is a story for another time.